Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz has joined noted slavery enthusiast Jan Mickelson to talk about birthright citizenship, which we'll get to in just a minute. But before they got to that, they first got down on their knees to praise Donald Trump for bringing up this issue of immigration that nobody had ever heard about previously. Let's listen.
Jan, one of the real benefits of Donald Trump's being in this race is it's forced the mainstream media to talk about illegal immigration.
Right.
They don't want to talk about it. And that is very beneficial. And I think what's happening is when voters start looking at this issue, they then start asking, okay, who has a record? Who's actually been fighting on this? And for years, I've been leading the fight, actually standing shoulder to shoulder with Steve King. People are fed up with politicians who say one thing and do another. They don't want a campaign conservative who opposes amnesty when they're running for president, but when they're not running for president, goes out and advocates amnesty. They want a consistent conservative who is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Consistency. Not saying one thing and then doing another. Bear that in mind. We're gonna circle back to that in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, they want somebody who's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Mostly yesterday. Mostly even way before yesterday. Mostly 50 years ago, 100 years ago. That's what they want. That kind of conservative.
Yeah.
You know, he said that people are fed up with politicians saying one thing and doing the other. It's weird. I went up and looked up his PolitiFact record for Ted Cruz. And it turns out 69% of his statements that PolitiFact have covered turned out to be pants on fire lying, or mostly untrue or untrue. So 69% of the stuff that they've checked on him. And then then I don't include the stuff that they say is half true. So I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm half true. Everything under half true equals 69%.
Next time out, he'll be like, I think Americans, when they go to the polls, he has such a particular way of talking.
Yes,
I think Americans, when they go to the polls, Jan, they're looking for a politician who 31% of the time tells it straight.
With a little bit of half-truth thrown in there.
That's right.
Keeps you guessing.
Yeah. So, look, the birthright issue is unbelievable. We'll get to that in a second. As usual, Ted Cruz is lying. He did not hold this position. He has not been consistent. John's going to tell you about that in a second. But what's amazing is after listening to this whole thing, I came to the conclusion that Ted Cruz now stands a very good chance of winning the Republican nomination. I really do. And I'll tell you why. Because the voters are foaming at the mouth. They're crazed, right? Trump, I ultimately, in the end, agree with Ben, will blow himself up. He'll swallow a grenade. You know, he'll say, my Jew banker, or whatever it is, right?
That's what we're all waiting for.
It's
And
coming.
he will lose at some point, and they're going to go to the Trump, not Trump opponent, Trump alternative, right? And Ted Cruz is the clear Trump alternative. That's how he's positioned himself. He knows it. That's the game he's playing. That's why at every turn he has... let's just say, let's just say what it is. Okay, you want honesty, you want truth, people telling it like this. At every turn, he's blown Donald Trump, right? Oh, Trump is right about this. Nobody was talking about immigration until Donald Trump. Oh, my God, Donald. Oh, he's all over me.
so he, because a month ago, after the John McCain controversy, I believe it was John. No, maybe it was just after the rapist immigrants. Some of them probably are rapists. I assume. He was on Fox and he condemned Trump. And I think he very quickly recognized what most of us agree with, that Trump can't make it. Something will happen, whether it's in 3 months or 6 months or tomorrow. Yeah. Something will happen at some point. And rather than jumping on, he wants to immediately inherit those voters. Immediately. Like he thinks, no, I will just praise Trump. I'll praise every single thing he does.
Yeah.
And then when he collapses, I'll suck those guys up. And I think
Good strategy, probably.
Sucking them up now.
I don't necessarily think that those Trump voters go to one person. I think that those Trump voters are different people. We don't know exactly who the hell.
No, we know. You're right. They're different people. But I think Ted Cruz is making that he can take that mantle, and that he has a less clear, foolish, bombastic nature. After all, he's a senator from Texas. He seems more like a president on literally the worst grade scale ever.
Look, maybe if Trump blows up, then Trump, if he likes Cruz, says to his, go support him, I support him.
And very quickly, to Jimmy's point, I think you're exactly right. I think Ted Cruz is not worrying about that now. I think he presumes that he will take a lot of those voters, plus he'll have his own, and that that might be enough to thrust him to the front.
So now let's go to the heart of this issue. Let's talk about how loathsome this position is. And it's real now. It's gotten real. Now almost all the Republicans are on board about taking away birthright citizenship. So let's give you the rest of Mickelson. Let's give you his Cruz's hypocrisy, and then come back and talk about they would literally have to do Gestapo tactics, and it's not an exaggeration. That's not, oh, don't say that, don't say, no, I am saying it. That's exactly what they'd have to do, okay? So, all right, so now let's see Cruz and Mickelson, one more clip here.
Anyone who is in the state of Iowa that is not here legally and cannot demonstrate their legal status to the So would you, as Congressman King introduced legislation to get rid of birthright citizenship, even at one time, John Kasich did. He won't talk about that now for some reason, but at one time he did. Would you support that?
Absolutely.
And do we need to change the Constitution?
As a policy matter, I think it is basic common sense that we shouldn't be incentivizing illegal immigration, that it doesn't make sense to be providing rewards for people to break the law and come here. And I would note, by the way, that has been my consistent position, publicly and in writing, since I began running for the United States Senate. So 4 years ago, my position, before this was a hot issue in the news, 4 years ago, my position was, of course we should end birthright citizenship.
Why doesn't...
Oh, what a fucking liar, man. All right, John, give us his real quote from 4 years ago.
Yeah, so here is exactly 4 years ago. So he seems to be aware of what he had said before. He's just going to tweak the record a little bit. He said, back then, the 14th Amendment provides for birthright citizenship. I've looked at the legal arguments against it, and I will tell you as a Supreme Court litigator, those arguments are not very good. As much as someone may dislike the policy of birthright citizenship, it's in the U.S. Constitution. And I don't like it when federal judges set aside the Constitution because their policy preferences are different. I think it is a mistake for conservatives to be focusing on trying to fight what the Constitution says on birthright citizenship. I think we are far better off focusing on securing the border because birthright citizenship wouldn't be an issue if we didn't have people coming in illegally.
So no, let's just be absolutely clear here. And the mainstream media, in their insane neutrality, will not call it as it is, okay? Ted Cruz is a purposeful liar. He lies on purpose. He does it all the time. He knows what he said 4 years ago. That's why he references 4 years ago. He said that the birthright citizenship is in the Constitution. It would be foolish to concentrate on it. It would be unconstitutional. Now he's saying, no, 4 years ago, I've been on this all along. Let's end birthright citizenship. You're a fucking liar. There's no way around it. That is as bold a lie as I have ever seen. But, you know, they'll play around it. The New York Times, et cetera. They'll play patty cakes, right? They'll never call him a liar. Oh, they'll have issues with the way that he stated his record, blah, 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 until people go, I don't know, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. No, Ted Cruz is a despicable liar.
Yeah.
That was on the Duke Machado show, and now he's on the Jan Mickelson show, so maybe that's the difference.
Okay, good point, good point.
Also, I looked it up. It was a Tuesday.
Yes.
It's a different day.
It's a different day. Of course, Ted Cruz
Different color tie.
is against abortion because if a baby doesn't grow up, he'll never have the chance to revoke its birthright citizenship.
Okay, so now let's go to the heart of how loathsome this policy of revoking birthright citizenship is. And the guy Ted Cruz is talking to is Jan Mickelson, who is pro-slavery. Now, if you didn't see yesterday's show and you haven't seen the background, you're going to, no, come on, he's not pro-slavery. You guys are exaggerating, right?
It's 2015.
Yeah, obviously.
Who has a radio show that people go on who's pro-slavery?
Yeah, he's either joking or he did an analogy or a hyperbole. No. He is literally pro-slavery. He said it before. Ted Cruz hears it and goes, I like this guy, and goes on his show. And then we'll connect all of it after this clip so you get context.
Anyone who is in the state of Iowa that is not here legally and cannot demonstrate their legal status to the satisfaction of the local and state authorities here in the state of Iowa become property of the state of Iowa. And guess what? You will be building a wall. We will compel your labor. You would belong to these United States.
Your idea is clever on the page, but it sounds an awful lot like slavery. I think
what would be the nature of the fallout?
Well, I think everybody would believe it sounds like slavery.
Well, what's wrong with slavery?
what's wrong with slavery. And by the way, he ended that
crazy.
segment by saying, "You think I'm kidding? I am definitely not kidding."
Yeah.
So people, he said, would then become property of the state of Iowa.
Which does sound like slavery.
It's in the Bible. It's okay.
And then they build that wall on the Illinois border, on that dangerous southern Missouri border, or he probably means that rugged western Nebraska border, because that's porous, right? People could just pour right into
Dust Devils.
So I mean, I love it that it just even in crazy conservative, not even conservative. This is just that's
Crazy.
fascist talk,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Even in that, he's suggesting that the people of Iowa are going to build a wall, I guess, around Iowa.
Yeah. And by the way, also
Because I don't think you could compel the property of Iowa to go to Texas.
that'd be different.
I don't think.
They might get away.
Or these United States. It's a very clever idea.
Yeah.
Ben.
Yeah.
It's a very clever idea.
Yeah, so you broke down how horrendous it is that, he has this show and he can say things like this. Imagine, if Martin Bashir had said it or whatever. We could go down the list on that. But Ted Cruz, look, we had said that they had previously been on this guy's show, which looked bad for them. And we would never have imagined in our wildest dreams that a presidential candidate would go on the show that week after those comments. And there will be no damage probably to Ted Cruz. Can you imagine if Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton went on a show that advocated for something a tenth as extreme as enslaving people in the United States? The damage that would be done to them, like, oh, they're radicals. You can never take them seriously again.
But here's why that won't happen to Ted Cruz. Because the Democrats are pussies, spineless
That's
pussies,
true.
and they will never make an issue out of things, even when it's handed to them on a silver platter. They won't. They won't call out Ted Cruz for saying one thing 4 years ago and saying another thing now. They're not doing any. They're not going to do it. Yeah. So that's why that what you just described is a phenomena that will continue to happen.
So now to the very, very core of this idea of taking birthright citizenship away. So let's game this out. So now they're all serious about it. Now everybody's on Jindal, Trump, obviously, Cruz, Walker, and Chris Christie. The list goes on and on. More than half the Republican candidates say, let's take away birthright
Rubio
citizenship.
is kind of like finessing
Rubio
it a bit.
is trying to finesse it because he would literally be on the list of people whose citizenship would be revoked. And I'm not kidding. He would literally have his citizenship revoked. Okay. So now here's what would happen. They would go around and say, okay, you're no longer a U.S. citizen. You're no longer, it's the opposite of Oprah. You're no longer a U.S. citizen, right? So, for example, I gave this example before. In my family, we'd lose a couple of family members. I was naturalized. I'm one of the few people who would remain because we went through the legal process, got naturalized. I was lucky because I wasn't born here. If I was born here, then they could revoke my citizenship. But I wasn't born here. I'm naturalized, right? So I'm legal. But my sister was born here as my parents went back and forth between Turkey and America. Anchor babe, gone, okay? My nephews, born here, the most blue-blooded American citizens. Wrong, your mom never had citizenship because we revoked her citizenship because she made the mistake of being born here. This is insanity, but literally what would happen, okay? So then my nephews, gone, they're revoked, okay? And on it goes. Hey, Susan, I mean, we went to East LA. How many people's citizenship? They're all born here, right? Generations born here. So, but your grandfather wasn't born here. When you were born here, he wasn't a U.S. citizen. His citizenship is revoked. Your citizenship is revoked. Your mom's citizenship is revoked. Everybody's revoked. Go send the Gestapo in, not just to East LA, not just to, everywhere across the country, not just the Latinos. Everywhere across the country, go send the Gestapo in. You're no longer citizens of the United States of America, and you will be evicted.
Yeah.
But I'm livid about this because it's not a fantasy world anymore. We have leading Republicans there's only two major parties. It's one of the major parties believes this should actually happen in the United States.
Yeah.
If you don't take it seriously because you think it sounds so outrageous, so insane that it couldn't possibly happen, well, that's how outrageous things happen. When people keep saying, oh, they probably don't mean it. They're probably not going to do that. Oh, and then he gets in office and goes, I told you very clearly I was going to do that. Of course I'm going to do that. I have a mandate to do that.
Right. Well,
that's exactly what they're going to do, and they're going to rip this country apart. And by the way, when they go into these places, whether it's immigrants from Italy, Mexico, whoever it might be, and they come in with their guns, because that's what you got to do. You can't remove people without guns. And they come in with their guns to rip families apart and send half this country back to wherever the hell they think we're from. You're going to have a revolution. What do you think people are going to do? Yeah, take 40% of Los Angeles and revoke their citizenship. What do you think's going to happen, right? These monsters, these maniacs are running for president of the United States, and they have a decent chance of winning. That's where we are today. We're in a world today where people are going on a guy's show who's pro-slavery, and they're proud of it. No, if you're a Republican and you're in this party, I saw someone on YouTube say, wow, if they do continue on this path, I would question whether I should stay a Republican. Yeah. Of course! This is why we say Republicans are vile. You think we made it up or we have some bias? I wasn't born a Democrat. I was a Republican when I was growing up. If you stay in this party, yes, then by definition, by voting for people who are this loathsome and un-American, you become loathsome and un-American. And for all the damage that you do to this country, you are responsible if you ever vote for any of these sons of bitches.